Hello, thank you for joining. My name is Jared Michaelek, and today I'm going to show you how you can create a native IBM BPM Process application without opening a single developer tool. All this is possible with a quick process builder application from Salient Process. Once the application is installed, it'll show up as a dashboard in your process portal. Here we can see the link. I'll click that to open it. And we're now presented with a number of different options and entry points. Today, I'm going to take you through a build from scratch, so we'll create something from a blank application, but there's other options as well. We could bring things in from a template, so if we have repeatable models such as an approval process or something that we want to have as a starter guide for users, we can create that as a template. We also have the concept of a marketplace, so we can have users log in similar to a Salesforce App Exchange where many different contributors can add content and add information, and other users can pull from that. In addition, we can save and open applications either from our desktop or from the BPM Process application itself. And lastly, we can import directly from Blueworks Live without leaving the portal. So we can log in, get our access to our Blueworks Live spaces and blueprints, and bring in a blueprint and have it generated automatically. But for today, we're going to start with a new blank application. Now, for the purposes of the demo, let's imagine that I am a manager and I have direct reports looking to request vacation. Now today, I'm getting emails and I'm tracking these in spreadsheets, and what I'd like to do, because we own IBM BPM, is to use the power of IBM BPM to manage that. Now historically, this was not possible because the level of investment was not worthwhile for the value that I was going to get from it as a small team where it's departmental, and potentially it's temporary. This may be just a seasonal process that I want to spin up, have my team request for vacations either over the summer or over the winter, and then I'm going to tear it back down. So this would never hit the IT backlog. In this case, however, if I can build an application in a matter of minutes and share it with my team, then I'm not only getting value because I'm no longer having to track these things manually, I'm also leveraging the power of IBM BPM and enhancing my investment there. So in this case, we'll give this process a name. So for example, my vacation request process. And I can give it some metadata such as description and tags, so I can add a couple tags. And these are very useful later when I start to build out a repository or a library of these no-code applications, so I can search and find and make sure that I'm not duplicating effort. We also have the ability to set themes, so things like logos and color schemes, I can customize those. And further, I can set the schedule for the process, similar to how I would do with a normal IBM BPM Process app, where I have a deadline for the overall process. In this case, I'll leave it as 7 days. The next step in this wizard is to add data, or really form elements. And the intent here is that we want to build a default form that's going to be used throughout the process that I can customize on each activity. In this case, I'm going to add 3 fields. The first field will be the person's name. I can add some other data depending on the data type, and you can see that this is a set of field objects that I can choose from. In this case, it's a text box, and I'm going to add a placeholder text as well. Enter your name. The next field will be the vacation date. In this case, we'll say this is a vacation date, and I can choose a date picker from the list. I'll add the placeholder, so say select your vacation date. And the last field for the demo will be the approved, whether or not this is approved. And this will be a checkbox for simplicity. Obviously, we may take this and really build it out and start to add sections for the form and different components, and we can organize the form accordingly. One of the other nice things I can do is see a preview of the form and actually change the look and feel directly through this WYSIWYG editor. In here, I can see I have a lot of real estate between the name and vacation date, so I want to put these side by side. So I can quickly change those to make them 50% and 50%, and now they'll appear side by side. And you can drag and drop and move these around as needed. The next step in the wizard is to build our process. In this example, I'm going to build 3 activities for this process. First activity is going to be to request vacation. So I get this step a name, and I add it to a team. In this case, I have no teams created yet, so I'm going to add a new employee team, and I'll add myself to that team for the demo. We'll go across the tabs for this activity. The next step is scheduling. I may want to make this due in 1 day. Our form, this is where we can customize the look and feel of the form for this activity. In this case, the name and vacation date should be required fields, and the approved field should be invisible because I cannot approve my own vacation. I can preview this right here to see this is what this form is going to look like. The next tab is to-dos. We have two forms of to-dos. One is more swivel chair kind of checklist style to-dos. So for example, I may ask them to check the team calendar, which will be required. And I might have an optional to-do to maybe review vacation policy. I'll set that as optional. We also have service-based to-dos. I'll talk about those in a moment, but if we want to really enforce something to happen behind the scenes through IBM BPM, such as sending an email, updating a database, doing a credit check, as long as those services are exposed to the Quick Process Builder application, I can leverage those in my process, both as to-dos as well as service steps. I can enable document support, so if I need to attach different kinds of documents here, I can enable that. We can add links and videos as reference. So for example, I may add the vacation policy as a link so that it's quickly available to the user. And we can add videos as well. And the whole idea is that we're helping this user through the process. We're coaching them through the process, which is the intent of BPM in general. The last tab is the task menu. These are the outcomes of the activity. So the defaults here are complete the task, return it back to the team, or keep it for later. But these can be fully customized. So for example, I could choose approve, reject, yes, no, okay, cancel. So you have a lot of different options here. I'm going to leave the defaults for the demo, but you can really kind of customize the look and feel and outcomes of the activity in the process. And you can see, now that I've added my first activity, I have my new swim lane, I have the human activity, and now I can start to add the additional activities. So the next activity is going to go to our manager to approve the request. And in this case, you see the employee team was added. I need to add a new team for manager. And just for the purposes of the demo, I'll add myself to that team as well. In this case, we have our form, which is not going to be the same as the last step. In this case, we'll make these read-only fields, and the approved checkbox will be required. For the to-dos, I'll add a single to-do to just say review the request. And that looks good. And you can see we've added a new swim lane, and it's now going to continue on to the manager. The last step is going to be review the result. This is going to come back to the employee. And in this case, I'll just make these fields all read-only. They cannot change at that time. So admittedly, it's a simple process, but it's also going to be very quick to create. In the last 5 or so minutes, I've created this full process, and I can publish this directly to IBM BPM as needed. One of the big magic moments of this is that the end result, what I publish to either Process Server or Process Center, is a 100% native application, meaning there's no change that I need to make if I ever want to promote this to extend additional capabilities using Process Designer. However, in a lot of cases, we can continue to iterate on this process, and I can continue to publish this process to Process Center. Each time I do, if the process already exists, it will create a new snapshot. Now, in this case, I do want to add one level of complexity. So instead of going back to the employee to review, if it's rejected, I want it to go back to the first step. How do I do that? I'm going to click on this line that's going between the second and third step, and instead of a human task, which is what we've been adding so far, we can either add a system step, so again, things like sending email, updating database, sending a text message, or we can add a decision gateway. The decision gateway is going to basically leverage whatever information I have available in the tool. In this case, if the approved field is false, meaning the checkbox is not checked, then I'm going to go back to the first step. So just through a couple clicks, I've added a new rule that says if it's not approved, I'm going to return to the next step, to the first step. Okay, and the last step of the wizard is where I publish my application. And wherever this user has access, so it can be a sandbox process server environment, it could be a production process server, or it could be a process center, I can immediately publish this out, and it will add this process application, and not only add it as a quick process application, it will look and feel and act like a full native IBM BPM process app. And there we go. So now we have our process application deployed, and it will, as soon as I refresh this screen, it will show up in our list of launchable applications. So now let's launch our process. If I open up my launchable apps, I see vacation request process is now available, and I can start the process. And because I added myself to the employee team, I can see the new request here. And I open the first task, and here's the default form. So we can see on the left-hand side, I have the form fields that I created, and remember I had the approved checkbox as marked invisible in the first step, and the two other fields as required fields. On the right-hand side, I have some descriptive information on the task itself. I have the to-dos, and then I have my references. One other thing to note here is that I did nothing to design for responsive design, but if I were to move this form to be smaller, such as on a smaller desktop or an iPad, we see now that it's going to stack those different panels. And further, if I were on an even smaller device, like a phone, we could have the full form itself stack as well. So everything is automatically created with responsive design in mind, and we can actually run this in multiple form factors. So let's go ahead and run a quick example of the process. So I'm going to put in my name and vacation date. And if I try to complete the task before I'm done, we'll see that it's going to prompt me that I have not finished the full form. So while these are not forcing me to do these things, it's still forcing me to check the box that I did complete that activity. In this case, the second one was optional, but I'll check that box as well. I'll complete the task. It gives me a prompt to confirm. I'll say yes. And now I see the second activity shows up, this one assigned to the manager. I'll open this task, and in this case, I'm going to reject the task because I know I want to see it go back to the first step in the process. So in this case, we see the form is changed because now these two fields are read-only, and now the checkbox is a required field, as well as the review the request. So I did review it, I check it, but then I uncheck it because I'm going to make them not able to take this vacation. In a real-life scenario, we'd obviously have maybe some comments or other additional information we'd provide, but in this case, just for the demo, I'm going to go ahead and reject that request. And now we see it comes back to the first step in the process. It's going to carry all the data with it, including whether it was approved or not. And here's our form. So it carried that data with us. And we now have to recheck these boxes. But what I want to show here is let's view the process diagram. So here we see that this is a full-on BPM process application. Looks very similar to the application or the flow that we had in the Quick Process Builder design. And we see that it did indeed come back to the vacation request. We see the number 2 indicating it came back to that. And we see my picture there that it went through that approved request. So this is now running as a native BPM process app. There's nothing specific to the Quick Process Builder once we publish this, and it's a very easy tool to get up and running and to use. This is just a preview of what the Quick Process Builder can do. If you're interested in learning more, please visit us at salientprocess.com. Thanks again, and have a great day.